Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Tonight, we're taking a chilling ride into the heart of unsettling encounters and eerie mysteries. Buckle up, because tonight we're diving into the world of hitchhikers on rainy nights. Imagine this: the steady drumming of rain on your windshield, the road stretching out before you, swallowed by the darkness. You're alone. The only sound, the rhythmic swish of your wipers, and then you see it. A lone figure silhouetted in the distance, thumb outstretched. It's a scenario that's played out countless times, a simple act of kindness on a dark and stormy night. But sometimes what seems like a harmless encounter can spiral into something far more sinister, something that defies explanation and chills you to the bone. Tonight we delve into 3 true stories of hitchhikers encountered on rain-soaked nights. These aren't just stories, they're real accounts of encounters that will leave you questioning what's truly out there lurking on the edge of the road. Our first story takes us to a desolate stretch of highway, the kind where shadows seem to twist and writhe in the dim glow of your headlights. The rain is relentless, a torrent that reduces visibility to mere feet. The windshield wipers struggle to keep up, creating a rhythmic, almost hypnotic sound. Driving conditions are treacherous and most people would stay off the roads. The few who dare to venture out do so with a sense of urgency and caution. But our driver, a young man named David, had no choice. His job demanded late hours, and tonight was no exception. He was on his way home from a late shift, anxious to get out of the storm. The thought of a warm bed and dry clothes was the only thing keeping him going. As he rounded a bend in the road, his headlights illuminated a figure huddled beneath a flickering streetlight. The sight was both unexpected and unsettling. It was a man, his clothes soaked through, his face barely visible beneath a rain-drenched hat. He looked like he had been standing there for hours, waiting for someone to come along. David, despite a prickle of unease, couldn't bring himself to leave the man stranded. The thought of leaving someone out in this weather was unbearable. He pulled over, rolled down the window just enough to hear over the storm, and offered the stranger a ride. The man's eyes lit up with gratitude. The man gratefully accepted, his voice a low murmur, almost lost to the howling wind. He seemed relieved, almost desperate for the offer. He climbed into the passenger seat, bringing with him the chill of the storm and something else. A sense of foreboding that David couldn't quite shake. Something David couldn't quite place. A subtle shift in the atmosphere. A sudden weight that seemed to settle over the car. It was as if the very air had thickened. As they drove, David tried to make conversation, to cut through the oppressive silence that seemed to have filled the car along with the hitchhiker. He asked where the man was headed, but the man offered little in return, just mumbled responses that did little to ease the growing unease in David's gut. The man's answers were vague, almost evasive. The rain continued to fall in sheets, the wipers working overtime to clear the windshield. The storm showed no signs of letting up. David focused on the road, trying to ignore the strange feeling that was growing stronger with each passing mile. He couldn't shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. He snuck glances at his passenger in the dim light, but the man's face remained obscured, his features lost in the shadows. It was as if the darkness itself was hiding him. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the rain stopped. The abrupt change was jarring, almost unnatural. The clouds parted, revealing a sliver of moon peeking through the darkness. The night seemed to hold its breath. David, relieved to be out of the worst of the storm, glanced at his passenger, intending to comment on the sudden change in weather. He felt a sense of relief wash over him, but the passenger seat was empty. The man was gone. The man was gone. Vanished. David's mind raced to comprehend what he was seeing. David slammed on the brakes, the car skidding slightly on the wet asphalt. His heart pounded in his chest. His heart pounded in his chest as he frantically searched the car, but there was no sign of the hitchhiker. Panic set in. It was as if he had disappeared into thin air. The seat was dry, as if no one had ever sat there. Shaking, David pulled back onto the road, his mind racing. He couldn't make sense of what had just happened. Had he imagined the entire encounter? Was his mind playing tricks on him? Was the stress of the drive and the storm playing tricks on his mind? He tried to find a logical explanation. He tried to rationalize what had happened, but the empty seat beside him served as a chilling reminder that something was very wrong. The silence in the car was deafening. When he finally reached home, he burst through the door, his words tumbling over each other as he recounted the strange events of the night to his disbelieving family. He needed them to understand. They listened patiently, attributing the experience to exhaustion and the storm's eerie effects. They tried to comfort him, but David knew what he had seen, or rather what he hadn't seen. The memory was vivid, etched into his mind. The man's sudden disappearance defied logic. It was a mystery that gnawed at him. There was no way he could have gotten out of the car without David noticing, not in that weather, not on that deserted stretch of highway. The impossibility of it all was maddening. The more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that he had encountered something unexplainable, something that transcended the boundaries of the natural world. It was a thought that both terrified and fascinated him. Had he picked up a ghost, a phantom hitchhiker searching for a ride on that stormy night? The idea seemed absurd, yet it was the only explanation that made sense. David couldn't shake the experience. It lingered in his mind, a constant reminder of the unknown, the empty seat, the chilling silence, the man's sudden disappearance. It haunted his thoughts. Every time he drove that stretch of road, he felt a shiver run down his spine. Determined to find answers, he returned to the spot where he had picked up the hitchhiker, hoping to find some clue, some explanation for what had transpired. He needed closure. He searched the area, but there was nothing. No footprints, no signs of life. No sign of the man, no discarded belongings, no indication that anyone had been there at all. It was as if the hitchhiker had been a ghost from the start. It was as if the hitchhiker had never existed, as if he were nothing more than a figment of David's imagination. The realization was both comforting and disturbing. Despite his efforts, David never found a rational explanation for that night. The mystery remained unsolved. The encounter remained a chilling mystery, a constant reminder that some things in life defy explanation. It was a story he would carry with him forever. The experience left him with a profound sense of unease, a lingering fear of the unknown that lurked on the edges of the familiar. It changed the way he viewed the world. The story of the phantom hitchhiker became a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered among friends and family, a reminder that, on a dark and stormy night, not all who seek help are what they seem. It served as a warning to all who heard it. Our next story takes us to the winding roads of rural Pennsylvania, where a young woman named Sarah found herself driving through a torrential downpour. The rain was coming down in sheets, the wind howling like a banshee. Visibility was practically zero, and Sarah, already nervous about driving in the storm, was beginning to regret her decision to visit her friend in the next town. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles white, her eyes scanning the road for any sign of danger. Each flash of lightning made her heart race faster. As she rounded a sharp bend, her headlights flashed across a lone figure huddled beneath a dripping tree. It was a young woman, her clothes plastered to her thin frame, her face pale and drawn. Sarah, despite her growing unease, couldn't bear to leave the woman stranded in the storm. She cautiously pulled over, rolled down her window just a crack, and offered the woman a ride. The woman, without a word, gratefully accepted, her eyes wide and unblinking. She slipped into the passenger seat, bringing with her the chill of the storm and an unsettling silence that seemed to amplify the sounds of the raging tempest outside. The air inside the car grew colder, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Picture this, a desolate highway shrouded in a torrential downpour. The kind of night where the wind howls like a banshee and the rain beats down so hard it feels like the sky itself is falling. Our protagonist, a young man named David, found himself driving through this maelstrom. He was returning home from a business trip, eager to get out of the storm and into a warm bed. As he navigated the treacherous roads, his headlights illuminated a lone figure standing by the side of the road. It was a woman, dressed in a white dress, her long dark hair plastered to her face by the rain. Now, David wasn't usually one to pick up hitchhikers, especially on a night like this, but something about the woman's forlorn expression tugged at his heartstrings. Maybe it was the way she seemed to shimmer in the darkness, or the fact that she was completely drenched to the bone, but he couldn't bring himself to leave her stranded. Against his better judgment, he slowed the car to a stop and rolled down the window, the sound of the storm momentarily silenced. "Need a ride?" he asked, his voice barely audible above the wind. The woman looked up, her eyes wide and grateful, and with a trembling nod, she climbed into the car. As the woman settled into the passenger seat, David couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. It wasn't just the cold from the storm, there was something off about her. Her skin was deathly pale, almost translucent, and her eyes seemed to hold a strange, unsettling intensity. She introduced herself as Sarah, her voice barely a whisper, and thanked David for his kindness. He tried to make small talk, asking her where she was headed on such a dreadful night, but her answers were vague and evasive. She spoke of being lost and alone, separated from her family, and as she spoke, David noticed a strange silver locket dangling from her neck. It was in the shape of an hourglass, the sand inside still flowing, even though the locket wasn't moving. He tried to shake off the unease creeping into his mind, telling himself it was just the storm playing tricks on him. But as the miles ticked by, he couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread that had settled over him. Sarah's stories became increasingly bizarre, filled with whispers of shadows and unseen forces. She spoke of a place lost in time, where the lines between life and death blurred, and her words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. David wanted to believe she was just a frightened young woman, her mind addled by the storm, but something about her tale, and the way her eyes seemed to glow faintly in the darkness, filled him with a growing sense of unease. As they drove deeper into the night, Sarah's story took an even darker turn. She spoke of a shadowy figure, a malevolent entity that haunted the road they were on. She claimed it preyed on lost souls, luring them off the road and into the darkness. David tried to dismiss it as a ghost story, a figment of her imagination, but Sarah insisted it was all true. She claimed to have seen the entity with her own eyes, its eyes glowing red in the darkness, its touch draining the life from its victims. David's grip tightened on the steering wheel as Sarah's words painted a terrifying picture in his mind. He had heard stories of haunted highways, of restless spirits seeking revenge, but he had always dismissed them as mere folklore. Yet, here he was, driving through a raging storm with a woman who spoke of such things with chilling certainty. The air in the car felt heavy, charged with an unseen energy, and David found himself constantly glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see a pair of glowing eyes staring back at him. He tried to focus on the road, on getting Sarah to her destination safely, but her words echoed in his mind, planting seeds of doubt and fear. He had always considered himself a rational man, but the events of this night were challenging his perception of reality. The storm raged on outside, mirroring the turmoil brewing within him as he grappled with the unsettling feeling that he had stumbled into something sinister, something beyond his understanding. With a shudder, Sarah pointed to a dirt road ahead, barely visible through the driving rain. "Turn here!" she whispered, her voice hoarse. David hesitated, his gut screaming at him to keep driving. The road looked treacherous, swallowed by darkness. Sarah pleaded with him, her eyes filled with a desperation that tugged at his heart. He told himself he would just take her a little way down the road, just to get her out of the storm. As soon as he turned onto the dirt road, the storm seemed to intensify, the wind howling like a banshee. The car lurched precariously in the mud, and David struggled to maintain control. "It's okay," Sarah said, placing a hand on his arm, her touch icy cold. He looked over at her, and his blood ran cold. Sarah was fading away, her form becoming translucent, her touch like a whisper against his skin. Panic surged through David. He slammed on the brakes, the car skidding to a halt. He watched in disbelief as Sarah, now a mere shadow of her former self, smiled sadly at him. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm. "But some journeys are meant to be taken alone." And with that she vanished completely, leaving behind only a faint scent of rain and a chilling silence. David sat there, heart pounding, the storm raging around him. Had he imagined the entire encounter? He shook his head, the memory of Sarah's haunting tale still vivid in his mind. He knew deep down that he had been touched by something unexplainable, something that would forever change his perception of the world around him. The storm outside had mirrored the storm within him, a tempest of fear and wonder. As he drove away, the road ahead seemed different, as if the world had shifted ever so slightly. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had crossed a threshold into a realm where the lines between reality and the supernatural blurred. The memory of Sarah's pale face and the eerie glow of her eyes stayed with him, a haunting reminder of the night's events. He knew he would never forget her story, nor the chilling reality of her disappearance. As he continued his journey, the rain began to ease, the storm gradually losing its fury. But the sense of unease lingered, a shadow that would follow him for the rest of his days. David knew that he had encountered something beyond the ordinary, something that defied explanation. And as he drove on, he couldn't help but glance at the passenger seat, half expecting to see Sarah's ghostly form reappear. The road stretched out before him, a path into the unknown, and with each mile he felt a little more certain that he had been part of a story that would be told for generations, a tale of the vanishing woman and the haunted highway. And the night had changed him, leaving an indelible mark on his soul. And as he drove on, the rain finally ceased, leaving behind a world washed clean, but forever altered by the shadows of the past. David knew that he would never look at a stormy night the same way again. The memory of Sarah and her haunting tale would stay with him, a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown. And as he glanced one last time at the rearview mirror, he whispered a silent prayer for the lost souls who wandered the dark highways, forever seeking a way home. The road ahead was long, but David felt a strange sense of peace, knowing that he had been part of something extraordinary, something that would stay with him forever. The storm had passed, but the memory of that night would remain, a testament to the mysteries that lie just beyond the edge of our understanding. And as David drove on, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the night held, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. The vanishing woman had left her mark, a story that would be told and retold, a reminder of the thin line between the known and the unknown. And as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, David felt a sense of closure, knowing that he had been part of something truly extraordinary. The road ahead was clear, but the memory of that stormy night would stay with him forever, a testament to the mysteries that lie just beyond the edge of our understanding. And as David drove on, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the night held, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. The vanishing woman had left her mark, a story that would be told and retold, a reminder of the thin line between the known and the unknown. And as the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, David felt a sense of closure, knowing that he had been part of something truly extraordinary. The road ahead was clear, but the memory of that stormy night would stay with him forever, a testament to the mysteries that lie just beyond the edge of our understanding. And as David drove on, he couldn't help but wonder what other secrets the night held, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. And there you have it, folks, 3 chilling tales of hitchhikers encountered on dark and stormy nights. Stories that blur the lines between reality and the supernatural, leaving us questioning what lurks in the shadows, especially when the rain starts to fall. Do you believe in ghosts, or are these just stories meant to send shivers down our spines? Whatever you believe, I think we can all agree that some roads are best travelled with caution, especially on nights like these. And if you do happen to see a lone figure standing by the side of the road asking for a ride, maybe, just maybe, keep on driving. Thank you for joining us on this spine-chilling journey. If you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more terrifying tales. Drive safe, and remember, not every hitchhiker is what they seem.